Well, I'm delighted to be joined by our former chairman, Steve Bates, and chief football writer of the Sunday People. This isn't really going to be a look back at the weekend's papers because we had Bank Holiday Monday off, shamefully. Yep. But what we are going to look at what was an incredible weekend, because it really has set up to round up that top four already, and to look back at England's progress in the World Cup and those three letters. VAR, how much could they haunt our time in Russia? Let's look ahead to what will be a fortnight of thrilling action, though, in this two-legged match. Speaking to a lot of people, and they've even dared say this for the next fortnight, bigger than the traditional Liverpool-Manchester United derby. Do you agree?
Well, I mean, that game sort of holds a special place in Premier League affection, but this is...
You were careful, weren't you, when you said that?
This is going perhaps a step beyond that, because the prize at the end of it is so big. It isn't just bragging rights as it usually is with Manchester United and Liverpool. This is kind of a big prize at stake, and also European sort of kudos and recognition really for the winner, and whoever I think wins this will really be seen by the other teams in Europe as a genuine contender for winning the Champions League this season.
How can Liverpool unpick Manchester City? We saw them do it at Anfield. We know that, of course, Mane was sent off in the first leg in their meeting at the Etihad, and also Salah didn't play a full part in that match and missed two chances on goal that he'd probably put away this time. Yeah,
the good thing I think for Liverpool is that they've already planted a seed of doubt in Manchester City's mind. Very few teams have managed to do that this season. That here's a team that can beat Manchester City. We can't say that about too many teams, both in Europe and at home. So Liverpool have got that advantage over over City, and we have seen already that they have got a forward line that on its day can be devastating. In many ways, I think Manchester City are tailor-made for Liverpool. If there was a team that Liverpool would love to play against, it would be Manchester City, simply because of the open way that Pep Guardiola plays his football. Absolutely, completely the opposite way to the way Jose Mourinho sets up his team, and we've seen a couple of times this season already in the 0-0 draw at Anfield with Manchester United, they weren't able to unlock that particular game, and obviously recently at Old Trafford, United beat Liverpool in the league again because they simply couldn't break them down. But with City, it's a completely different scenario. It'll be a game of attack via attack rather than defence via defence. And I think that on that score, Liverpool are as well equipped as anybody, possibly in Europe at the moment, to exploit City's weaknesses.
Let's look at the other debate that's raging, and we all took a double take, didn't we? What a remarkable goal from Cristiano Ronaldo. Nicely picked apart in Matt Barlow's article from the Allianz. Shot distance, 12 yards, speed of shot, 47.2 miles per hour, height 5 feet. The best goal you've ever seen on the Champions League stage?
Well, listen, all the debate is raging today, isn't it, on Twitter and all the social websites about whether that was the greatest. I mean, it was a good goal, let's face it, and every overhead kick is a spectacular kind of addition. We've seen so many overhead kicks in the Champions League down the years. Philip Mexes, I remember, scored a fantastic one, and he was a defender. So there have been some great ones, yeah. Whether it's the best ever, I'm not so sure. I think there's a couple been outside the box overhead kicks, so this one was closer in than that. But I think the sheer technique of Ronaldo to climb that height, he's 32 years old, gosh, there aren't many players that can do that, in their 20s, let alone their 30s. So he's very much in the role of, or the mould of, maybe a Zlatan Ibrahimovic in that respect, who's incredibly supple and mobile still. Into his 30s, and it was just a fantastic example again of Ronaldo's brilliance and ability to do it on the big stage. I mean, there's one thing doing it in sort of league games, be it in La Liga or Premier League, but when you're in a crucial Champions League tie where there's a place in the semi-final at stake, to do it on that occasion when the pressure is really biting is just immense, and Ronaldo's time and time again shown that he can do that.
staggering, isn't it? I mean, that's his ability, isn't it? On the big stage, on the big occasion, he produces the results. Talking of teams and producing results, as we look to this weekend, we saw this fixture in the diary last year, and it was a salivating prospect, but in reality, there's always a bump, there's always a hitch in the road. For them even to have set up this tie, how remarkable is that?
Well, I mean, it's the perfect storm for Man City and their fans. To be able to win the title is immense anyway, because of the competitive tribal nature of the Premier League, but to be able to do it against your crosstown rivals, where they for years and years held the whip hand over you in the Premier League, for the tables to have turned now, and you know, it has been said more than once in recent weeks that this maybe is a defining moment in a shift of power, the power balance in Manchester firmly in City's favour. Obviously, for Jose Mourinho, he will not want to relinquish anything to Pep Guardiola. So what I would say is that, you know, on his day, Jose Mourinho is perhaps the manager that you would want to stage manage a one-off game to get the result that he needs, whether that's a 0-0 or whatever is another matter. But, you know, Mourinho is capable on his day of masterminding a tactical game plan that can frustrate a team. And, you know, whether that works or not against Pep Guardiola's free-flowing City side, I'm not so sure. But there's no doubt about it. Look, Man City have been absolutely brilliant all season. There's nobody more deserving of winning the title than them. The timing of doing it against Manchester United is just incredible, because I don't think at the start of the season people would have looked a good month or more before the end of the season and thought that the league will be won then. You know, it's usually more competitive than that, but City have just blown away their rivals, and I think they've been top since basically late September and haven't relinquished the lead since then, the top of the table. So yeah, hats off to Man City and Pep Guardiola for the way they've gone about their business.
Quite sad post-match speaking to Antonio Conte. Antony Go, as we see in that article. Is it all but over now in the top four as well? I mean, remarkable that you come in and win the Premier League in your first season and then face the prospect of leaving, but it rather seems...
Yeah, it is sad in a way, Carrie, that, you know, I don't think Chelsea fans could have foreseen that when they won the title last year, virtually a few months later, you know, it would have all unravelled so spectacularly and sadly in a way for Conte. You know, he has obviously been unable to control his own feelings at the way the club's managed. Some people might have been persuaded to just kind of keep their own counsel, keep quiet. He's not been able to do that, you know, and maybe when you're at the top of the tree like that, you know, you have your professional integrity to think about, and maybe that's been an overriding factor for him. But it does look like he's going to go. The headline there, Antony Go, seems to say it all. But I think we've more or less known that for a good few weeks, if not months now. Clearly all is not right behind the scenes. And Chelsea, of course, you know, do flip their manager quite often. Abramovich and the Chelsea board do tend to change managers like other teams change their kits. So it looks like he's gone now, and other possibilities in the pipeline for Chelsea, and I'm sure we'll see a new manager there next season.
I mean, Jerry Cox actually helps us with this FWA review, produces it, was at that press conference when he even said himself, Antonio Conte, I'm not sure of my future.
No.
I mean, even he's suggesting it's...
Yeah, and I don't think we really needed that confirmation from him either, to know that really the game's up for him there, which you know, is sad for him, especially just a year after winning the title. But of course, we've seen this kind of pattern before. Jose Mourinho came back and won the title with Chelsea, and then the next season before Christmas he was gone. So you know, this is a recurring theme with Chelsea.
And how quickly the tides are turned, Mr. Bates.
He
knows what's coming up. Because on Sunday, you exclusively wrote about the pressure being on Dele Alli after he only got a look in the second half of the England game at Wembley, but then how he answered his critics. As he said post-match, he said, you know, I'm not seeing it as critics. I'm I didn't get a game and I've just proved my worth. I'll play for a team, see what I can do. And that was very much the point, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, the international break, I think, showed that his place in the England team is very much not as secure as his place in the Tottenham team. He's got a manager in Mauricio Pochettino who clearly believes very, very strongly in him, and quite rightly so, because he sees him on a daily basis. For Gareth Southgate, Gareth has got a bigger picture to look at and looking at other options. And I think that when we saw Dele Alli on the bench for the games against Italy and Holland, there was a realisation there that maybe he's gone from being a certain starter at the World Cup to maybe being more of a player who will come off the bench. But look, his response against Chelsea was absolutely first class. I don't think anybody's doubts Dele Alli's ability and quality as a player. And let's not forget, he's still a young guy.
Yeah.
So there are kind of better days ahead for him.
And showed such strength of character to come out and play that way and not actually to have been
sure. And you see that is something that Southgate will like. The fact that he's been in a corner, but he's responded in the best possible way, done his talking on the pitch, done his talking the way he does it best with his skill and his ability.
And post-match, very, very, because I was with him post-match and he refused to say anything about critics, just said, I just keep working hard.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. And more performances like that and he will definitely be in the starting lineup for England.
That's a good sign for England. Got to talk about Tottenham and Pochettino and again what he's achieved finishing in the top four, but that record 1990, that's not a small record.
No. And listen, that's one that gave everybody at Tottenham a huge lift at the weekend. Stamford Bridge was virtually empty, wasn't it, by the time that whistle was blown at after 90 minutes. But yeah, it was great for Pochettino to nail that. Tottenham have had an up and down season a little bit. They've been brilliant at times. Real Madrid at Wembley, of course, we saw, and away in Madrid, they were fantastic. But there have been hiccups along the way. But they are finishing the season very, very strongly, and I think there's no doubt that they could possibly win the FA Cup as well.
Barney Roney, among a number of journalists, writing some lovely pieces on Raheem Sterling, who put on a masterclass at Wembley, was frustrated with himself for not scoring, came into his post-match interview and was a little downtrodden that he hadn't, and surprised he got such good reviews. But a beautiful article by Barney, and your views on him for England now, back to the old days under Suarez at Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, another player like Dele Alli who's gone through some rocky times, still only a young guy himself after that big £49 million transfer from Liverpool. But again, his quality has never been doubted. It's just delivering it on a more consistent basis. I saw him in Holland when he played for England there a couple of weeks ago, and he was fantastic. He's been brilliant for City all season, and I think he's really... I think Pep Guardiola's actually improved him as a player.
We are jumping around because there's a lot to cover this week. Sammy Mockbell here talking about VAR and the foul taste that it left in England's night at Wembley. They could have got a victory over Italy. Of course, he said Gareth Southgate very much believed he was robbed of that result. Ultimately, are we now very concerned about what implication, what impact this could have at the World Cup? We're going to have another Bloemfontein where we just think it's changing the result from where we should be. Well, that didn't ultimately change the result.
I think we would have liked VAR in Bloemfontein, I'm sure. Frank Lampard certainly would anyway.
Yeah.
But yes, look, VAR is still in its kind of infancy. I think until they get it spot on and the way it's delivered, there'll always be question marks about it. But generally, I think what we're seeing with VAR is the results. We are getting the right results. Maybe James Tarkowski would argue against that one, but generally I think we're getting the right results with this system, and it will get better. But I take your point, Carrie. I think in Russia we're still going to have a few problems with it.
A nice piece from Ian Herbert here. He talks with James Collins at West Ham. We can't play in fear of going 1-0 down and there being a pitch invasion. The players all really rallied together, didn't they? Statements made by the captain. Corner being turned there. But really nice insight from Ian Herbert in that interview about what it's like to be in that dressing room at the moment and playing for West Ham. Seemed to have turned a corner, but very much so with the players coming out, talking, having a voice. It works, football clubs, just pointing that out. They showed that in the last week.
Absolutely it does, and it's much better when we don't have events like we saw at West Ham. And you know, I think fans basically forget sometimes that the players are only human. You know, they're not trying to lose matches. They're doing the best. That West Ham situation seemed to spiral out of control a little bit, but hopefully that big win over Southampton has kind of dragged everybody back to reality, and let's just get on with seeing the season out with any more of those incidents.
Really nice piece here in The Guardian by Suzanne Rack, and we're launching the Women's Football Awards at the Football Writers Association end of season awards, and so much online at the www.footballwriters.co.uk about that. But a really nice article by Suzanne Rack about how in Ghana the football is very much seen as a women and a man's world, much as it is in America as well, and how we're getting there with perception. But it's just a really good little read if you have a second bit of insight there. Yeah,
it's going to take some time, I think, you know, for women's football to be accepted unanimously by everybody. It will get there, I'm absolutely certain, just like VAR.
Yeah, just in the sense that, well, when girls are given the same coaching as the men, as is happening now slowly, we're going to get to that point that the level's the same, but it's
absolutely, and the professionalism will be the same as well, because there's no reason it shouldn't be.
And we're hoping to change that as rapidly as possible. Just a little wrap up on the Men's Football Writers Award as well, and how you can vote if you're a member of the Football Writers Association. There are no rules. It's who you think is the Football Writer of the Year. So obviously everyone is saying De Bruyne and Salah. So I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. If Harry Kane then goes and gets the Golden Boot for a second year in a row and hasn't won anything,
if he has a strong finish to the season in the last month, no reason he shouldn't do. And presses Salah for that award, then, you know, maybe. I think quite often football writers and people generally, when they're voting for this award, they tend to forget the first part of the season. Yes. You know, it's always about the finish. It's about the impact, and that's why Salah at the moment seems to be kind of moving ahead of De Bruyne, because there's no doubting De Bruyne's contribution and quality and impact up until, say, January. He's kind of dropped off a little bit since then, and Mo Salah's picked up the baton, and he's finishing the season with an electric charge. No reason why Harry Kane can't do the same, but I would think the winner will come from De Bruyne or Salah.
So all to play for. We wonder what delights we're going to see as we count down to the end of the season. Steve Bates, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
Enjoy
Carrie.
the next fortnight. It's
Will
a thriller,
do.
Isn't it?
It is indeed.
Enjoy.